It started with a whisper, like most royal controversies do. But this one isn't just palace gossip or a disgruntled staffer throwing shade on their way out. This time there's allegedly a camera involved. Cold, silent, and impossible to reason with. Meghan Markle, once praised as a breath of fresh air in the royal family, now stands accused of mistreating the very people who made her world function behind the scenes. And the whispers, they're getting louder. The footage hasn't been made public yet, but those who claim to have seen it describe something disturbing. Meghan on camera speaking to a female staff member in a way that was more than harsh. It was degrading, not a heated moment, not a misunderstanding, something that left people in the room speechless. And according to those same insiders, this wasn't a one-off. It was part of a pattern that began shortly after the royal wedding.
Told me she's still experiencing issues after leaving Meghan's employment. And the way she treated me, she says of Meghan, can only be described as dehumanizing.
When the tiaras were packed away and the photographers stopped flashing, the real Meghan, they say, emerged. The nickname given to the inner circle, who claimed to have experienced this side of Meghan, the Sussex Survivors Club. That's not satire. That's not a tabloid punchline. That's what they call themselves.
One of the things that she pointed out was that Meghan was incredibly ugly when Harry wasn't around. But as soon as Harry was around, and another point they made was the mask slipped.
And you don't label yourself a survivor over someone being demanding or exacting. Survivor is a kind of word you reserve for something that leaves a mark long after the experience ends. What's more chilling is the level of control Meghan allegedly maintained over every interaction. Former staffers say the Duchess was warm and charming in public, all smiles and hugs when the cameras were around. But when the doors shut and the public was gone, a switch flipped, orders barked, eyes rolled, personal jabs disguised as professional feedback. One aide allegedly left the job in tears more than once. Another described their time at the Sussex residence as emotionally exhausting, saying they'd never felt so small. And then there's the money trail. Meghan and Harry walked away from the royal family to create their own empire. Netflix deals, Spotify podcasts, book deals, lifestyle brands. On paper, it looked like the perfect Hollywood escape plan. In reality, it's been messy. The Spotify deal crumbled. Netflix has reportedly canceled projects. Meghan's lifestyle brand, launched with much anticipation, fizzled without a spark. They cashed in their royal chips for independence, but now the cash is thinning, and the public goodwill is drying up even faster. People close to the situation are beginning to question whether this was all a long con. Did Meghan play the victim card to climb higher only to turn into the very thing she claimed to hate once she had the throne, or at least her version of it? That's what makes this latest allegation so damaging, because the footage, if real, can't be explained away as racism, as media bias, or royal snobbery. It's visual, it's visceral, and it's damning. Then comes the question of Harry. Where was he during all this? Some sources say he would step in when he was around, trying to calm her down, protect the staff, but he wasn't always home. And when he wasn't, things reportedly got worse. Which begs another uncomfortable question. Was he aware of just how bad it was? Or did he choose not to look too closely? Meghan's brand has always been built on compassion, women's rights, and mental health awareness. But according to more and more insiders, the image she sells to the public doesn't line up with the private reality they live through. If that footage ever leaks, the internet won't just react, it'll erupt. There's something jarring about watching someone who preaches empathy treat others like they're disposable. One former staff member who worked directly under Meghan during her time as a royal said it best. She didn't speak to us like people. It was like we were just in the way. That's a heavy thing to say about someone who built an entire image around uplifting women and advocating for mental health. But when enough people say the same thing, it starts to stick. Multiple employees reportedly left within months of joining her team. Some broke down during meetings. Others just quietly disappeared, their contracts ending early, their stories buried under NDAs and polite public statements. Behind those smiles and staged photos and that calm, curated voice on podcasts, there was, as they describe it, an undercurrent of control, coldness. One ex-staffer claimed Meghan would micromanage down to the smallest detail, not out of perfectionism, but because she needed to dominate every room she walked into. That control extended to how people stood, spoke, and even breathed around her. You couldn't just work, you had to worship. And what did the palace do during all of this? Not much. The royal institution, already under fire for its handling of internal conflicts, stayed mostly silent. Whenever reports of staff treatment emerged in the press, defenders pointed fingers at racism, cultural misunderstanding, or just plain bitterness. But here's the thing. Many of the staff who spoke out weren't press leakers. They weren't angry former employees with an axe to grind. They were people who simply couldn't take it anymore. They came forward not for attention, but because they felt something deeply wrong had been buried under royal polish. Then came the infamous nickname Duchess difficult. At first, Meghan's fans dismissed it as media bullying, another label thrown at a woman of color challenging the system. But inside royal walls, it wasn't used lightly. Staffers used it to communicate an ongoing issue, a pattern that seemed to escalate with time. And that pattern included shouting matches, cutting remarks, an obsession with hierarchy that mirrored the very system Meghan claimed to rebel against. It's not just the palace staff, either. According to insiders, even some of her personal staff after the royal exit reported the same issues: emotional manipulation, belittling comments, high turnover when one assistant allegedly made a minor scheduling error. Meghan is said to have bared her in front of the entire team, reducing the woman to tears. That kind of behavior doesn't get fixed with a PR campaign. It sits in the background waiting to leak. And now it finally might. The silence from Meghan's camp is also starting to feel like an answer in itself. No denials, no lawsuits, no official statement, just silence. And in a world where silence often means consent, that's beginning to speak louder than any tabloid headline. Especially when the people who are speaking out aren't strangers. They're the ones who were in the room. One particular moment stands out. A source claimed that Meghan once mocked a staffer's British accent during a team meeting. Everyone laughed awkwardly, unsure if it was a joke. But the staffer didn't laugh. She just sat there stunned. Those kinds of moments don't go viral, but they leave bruises. Not the kind you see, but the kind that change how someone sees themselves. If the footage really exists, and if it ever reaches the public, it won't just be a PR disaster. It'll be a character reveal. Not because it's a single outburst caught on camera, but because it confirms what too many people have been saying for too long. There's a strange kind of betrayal that happens when someone you rooted for turns out to be the villain in someone else's story. Meghan Markle wasn't just welcomed, she was celebrated. People projected their hopes onto her. A biracial American woman stepping into centuries-old royal tradition, speaking about equality and self-worth. She was supposed to be the change. But what happens when the person wearing the crown of progress is the one holding others down? Supporters once defended her fiercely, chalking up every accusation of racism, jealousy, or an outdated monarchy. But the cracks are harder to ignore now. It's not just one disgruntled worker. It's a chorus. It's the same kinds of stories from different voices across different years with frighteningly similar patterns. Crying in bathrooms, dreading morning meetings, being made to feel small by someone who champions lifting others up. And it's not like Meghan's career outside of the royal bubble has helped quiet the noise. Her deals have been shaky at best. Spotify ended with a public statement basically calling her podcast underwhelming. Netflix, their supposed golden ticket, hasn't delivered on the buzz it promised. Her lifestyle brand is barely registered. And every time a project fizzles, more people start asking if the real problem isn't the audience, it's the woman behind the brand. It's easy to curate a version of yourself for the public. Social media makes it effortless. You post the smiling moments. You deliver speeches filled with buzzwords and light piano music in the background. But what happens when that version gets challenged? Not with rumors, not with anonymous quotes, but with real faces, real names, real people who walked away with emotional bruises they didn't sign up for. Those employees, most of whom have stayed quiet for years, aren't just speaking out because they're angry. Some of them truly believed in Meghan. They believed in her story, in her mission, in the idea that they were helping create something meaningful. And that's what makes it cut deeper. It's one thing to be treated badly by someone you don't admire. It's another thing entirely when it comes from someone you looked up to. Miss Scapio's words hit hard for a reason. Calling a former employee a survivor isn't exaggeration. It's recognition. A quiet, haunting admission that something went terribly wrong behind closed doors. And if even a fraction of what's being alleged is true, then this isn't about one woman's career. It's about the harm that gets buried under the glamour of celebrity. Because for all her talk of kindness, the biggest question now is, who did Meghan Markle actually help? Her staff broken, her partnerships crumbling, her image fragile. When the performance is peeled away, what's left? That's what people are starting to wonder. And more importantly, why has no one from her team addressed any of it? Silence, when paired with control, becomes its own kind of cruelty. When you hold the mic and choose not to speak for the people who suffered under your leadership, it says more than any denial could. It tells the public you don't think they matter, that the people behind the scenes are disposable, replaceable, voiceless. But the truth always finds its way out in quiet testimonies, in leaked videos, in the bravery of those who decide they've stayed silent long enough. Meghan built a brand on being the voice of the voiceless. Now the voiceless are speaking, and the world is finally listening.